99.9 Punk World Radio FM. We got a phenomenal guest tonight. This individual is probably just a few blocks away from me, but we're gonna stick to the Punk World Radio format. We're gonna keep this virtual. But we have Ottawa's finest. This man has been on the radio for so many years. He's an individual that actually, really mentored me and really helped me hone my craft in the broadcasting industry. We have that phenomenal Dylan Black. Dylan, how are you doing tonight, man?
DJ Immortal, it is an absolute honor to be on your station here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, it's an honor. It's an honor that you even said yes, but I do know you're a very busy guy. But again, thank you for your time, dude.
You're welcome. Thank you.
But I got to say, how's everything going out there on your end? I see you're doing a lot of phenomenal things. I do know you just announced something on Facebook about the Salvation Army that we're going to get into that. But how has your week been going so far, dude?
I mean, the whole summer has been busy. It's been great. I did lose my gig at Boom 99.7 in June, and that's part of the radio world, right? But since then, I've spent a lot of time with my 8-year-old, and I've done some great MC work and working a lot at Yuck Yucks Comedy Club as well. Got to host some shows recently, so it's been busy. The Salvation Army thing is I'm the ambassador for their Santa Shuffle coming up, Bethany Hope Center. That happens in December. I believe it's my 4th or 5th year doing that. So definitely keeping busy.
And I got to say as well, Dylan, I absolutely love the haircut. I noticed whenever the boom thing happened, I noticed you cut your hair. I was like, okay, that is a new look. But I got to say, I never thought I could picture you with short hair, but I did. And I got to say, it looks great on you, dude.
Thanks. So it's funny because before you and I got to know each other, that's all I had was short hair. So when I was hosting Rogers Daytime on Rogers TV, it was short hair, and it was just the last couple of years I decided to let it grow, and then the job loss happened, and I thought, okay, new me, I guess, right? And I cut it back to my old ways, and after 2 years of growing it, and I'm even thinking I'm already in need of a trim, so probably going to keep it short this time around.
And it's also less of a hassle to clean it as well. Yeah. I mean, obviously, showering. Yes. I think with long hair, you got to use a quarter of a shampoo bottle at a time. At least you can save on the shampoo now.
It was getting to the point where I thought maybe I was saving on hair gel, right? Because when you have long hair, you didn't need to, because you can tell that there's quite a bit of hair gel in there. But I was spending more money on declogging my tub drain because it kept getting clogged every few months. And so a lot more hair or shampoo rather. So, but I'm back to spending too much on hair gel.
And also, taking you way, way, way back in the day, back before you had to buy a bottle of Drano a day. Before venturing into the broadcasting industry, I also read that you attended Trent and Queen's University, where you studied concurrent teacher education. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that. And of course, what made you make the actual jump to radio broadcasting? Because from teaching to broadcasting is such a huge jump.
Yeah, I got into the Trent Queen's concurrent teacher education program. So we're going way back on this. It was 1996 that I attended Trent in Peterborough, and it wasn't for me. It felt like radio is one of my passions before that, but I figured that I got into this this program, and I only let so many people into it, so I thought I'd give it a try. So after a failed attempt, let's say, I attended Loyalist College in Belleville, Ontario, and took the 2-year program and graduated there in 1999.
And I got to say as well, radio broadcasting is probably the funnest thing. I don't know, funnest thing for me, I should say, being a part of the Algonquin College aspect of things. But I can only imagine what college was like for radio broadcasting back in 1999. Did you guys still have to use CDs? Because I heard even back then some colleges still used records and 8-tracks.
Yeah, so we used something called carts that looked like 8-tracks, and it was at a time. So I started in 97 and graduated in 99. It was a time where things were beginning to be automated. So we did learn on reel-to-reels, and we did learn on vinyl and all of that, CDs, obviously. But then things were becoming computerized. So I was lucky enough that I was studying at a time where I learned the basics and the early stuff of radio, and then the automation as well before I really landed my first job.
And I remember as well, my professor Dan Mellon, He
Yeah.
actually taught us about punching carts and told us a little bit about it. He said it was a pain in the arse at times. What was your take? Did you actually enjoy punching carts, or was that something you were
Well,
kind of glad that was getting phased out when you were in school?
it was definitely a lot more work because you'd have to pull all the carts. If you had, say, when I started in Ottawa, I was doing overnights, so it was like a 6-hour overnight show. And at that point, we were still using a mixture of carts and CDs and computer. So you'd have to have every element sort of ready to go. Where now in radio, it just plays off a screen, and you basically stop it and start it whenever you want to. So it was a lot more work, and you really had to stay on your toes on top of entertaining and being on top of show prep, and perhaps having people in the studio or whatever was going on at the time. The one difference is back then there was nothing called social media. That did not exist, so you didn't have to worry about social media. So that can obviously take a lot of time when you're in the studio now too. But I kind of liked mixing things my own way, mixing carts into CDs into automation, and yeah, and that doesn't happen very often now.
And also, as well, as you mentioned, upon actually graduation from Loyalist College in radio broadcasting, you told us about that. But you landed a job at Cool FM that unfortunately no longer exists. Which I'm not mistaken, I believe it turned into Magic 100. In May of 1999 is when you actually got that job. For the listeners that might not remember this particular station, can you tell us a bit more about it? And of course, your earliest memories of just working there.
So I can tell you, Cool FM and Magic 100 were two different radio stations. So Magic turned into Move, which is what you'll hear now in Ottawa, and Cool FM turned into Bob, and then turned into Pure Country. So a lot of changes throughout the years, right? But Cool FM and Magic 100 were always number one, number two. They were always going back in the ratings, back and forth. It was a top 40 radio station, and I grew up in Vankleek Hill, Ontario, which is an hour from Montreal, an hour from Ottawa. So it was the best of both worlds. I got to listen to major market radio in Ottawa, in Montreal, but I listened to Cool FM as a teenager all the time. And that was my first Ottawa radio job, working overnights and filling in and promotions, street team. So it was pretty cool. I used to sit there at the console at night thinking, like, I can't believe I'm sitting here, pushing the same buttons that some of my legends, my idols in radio were pushing. So it was a cool time. And I was about 21 years old. So long time ago at this point.
And I've heard some stories of Cool FM. It was a very, very popular station back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it was huge. And I mean, back then there was probably only 5, 6, 7 radio stations to begin with, where now there's 15, 20, depending on who you're counting in the mix, right? So it was quite something to be on these stations, and it was a lot of fun. And some of the coolest things I ever got to do in radio was that first summer. I introduced Britney Spears on stage at the then, I think, Palladium or Corel Center, which is the Canadian Tire Center, and Aaron Carter and Weird Al Yankovic and the Moffats and all these names, right? And it was a lot of fun. It was kind of a magical time, and it was probably the end of like the really great days of radio, if I can say that. There's still, I'm still a huge fan of radio, but it was just after that it did begin. After that, it did begin to get automated. There was less employees. There was no overnights, not as much weekend announcers. But it was a crazy time, and I was getting paid not super, but just the fun and everything was probably the best time I ever had in radio.
And even if you're not getting paid a lot, you're still doing what you love to do. I mean, there's people that work just barely scraping by, and they're scrubbing toilets or doing factory work. I mean, I would rather make minimum wage in radio, just doing what I love to do, than knowing I can make minimum wage with my hands in a toilet. I mean, that's just me.
Well, yeah. Agreed. Same here.
But speaking of the Britney Spears thing, because I know you actually sat down and told me this story when we were actually hanging in the Boom studio a few months back. But I have to ask, man, just for the listeners, because being at 21 years old, Cool FM, being able to walk on the stage of the Corel Center, this was like 1999, 2000. I mean, Britney Spears was huge, so I can only imagine how cram-packed the Corel Center was. What was it like just being on that stage announcing Britney Spears and trying to hype up that crowd?
Well, amazing. And obviously I was pretty nervous being a green announcer at that point. And, when I was asked to do it with it was me and another announcer at the station, and we were backstage with Britney, and she was, warming up, and it was quite something because it was, hit me baby one more time. Like she was just exploding on the scene, right? And but even to these days, like I still get excited, and when I'm emceeing a golf tournament, or I've done big blues fest crowds before, and you just sort of go out there and people are just excited to know that the show is about to begin. And when the announcer is on there, that means that something's about to happen. So people get excited, people get crazy, and you can kind of, without getting too silly yourself, you can almost say just about anything you want. They're still going to cheer and clap. So it's kind of fun. It's super fun, actually.
And with that being said, I do know some radio stations still kind of do this every now and then. But obviously, I do know I got a lot of my students, like not my students, but my fellow classmates, I should say, that are watching this broadcast right now. And what advice can you actually give a young broadcaster that has to tackle a crowd of that size? Because you were young, you went on and you did that. I mean, you tackled the Britney Spears crowd, man.
I think you just go for it. And, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to anybody is, like you see people like Ryan Seacrest, do what he does, and all these big names in radio and media. And it's like, what makes him any better than us? And, like at one point in his career, he was an overnight announcer as well. And he had these dreams, and you just go for it. At the end of the day, you can say that you did it or you didn't do it. And which one would you rather? Right. So you grab that microphone, you maybe rehearse it once or twice in your head, you keep it tight when you're out there, and you just give it, and then you run off the stage.
And also, aside from Britney Spears, Aaron Carter, the Moffats, all these amazing stars, you also had the opportunity to sit down with your idol and interview the one and only, the amazing Michael Bolton. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a story of that experience. And of course, what was it like just being face to face with someone that helped you through so many difficult times in your life just through his music?
Yeah, so if I'll be honest, so it was over the phone. It was 30 minutes with Michael Bolton on the phone, and he was just putting out a new album in 2002 or so. He was turning 50 the next day. And yeah, I was pretty nervous because he is my absolute music idol, but he was great, super incredible. They always say, don't meet your idols, don't meet but I was grateful that I had the opportunity. Towards the end, he was complimenting me on the job I was doing. And you could tell though that I was getting a little, like I didn't want to let him go. I actually I have a copy of the interview on CD, and nobody listens to it. Like nobody's allowed to listen to it because it's probably the most proud moment I've ever had, or the coolest thing I've ever done. But one of the most embarrassing too, because I'm probably, you can hear the inexperienced. I was just very excited to be on the phone with him.
But you know what, though? At the end of the day, you still had that opportunity. And honestly, I read the story, and I'm not going to bring it up because it involves family. But I know the story of why you got so emotional with that, because I know Michael Bolton's music helped you very much back in the early 90s. So it's definitely understandable why you actually had that enthusiasm being choked up. I mean, honestly, dude, it's Michael Bolton. I mean, even if I got a chance to interview him, I'd be like, what the hell is going on right now? It's Michael Bolton.
Exactly. And I mean, I've had an opportunity to interview some legends over the years, and a lot of up and comers who became names, and they're all just people, right? And they're all there because they know that you're going to give them good promotion, and you're going to treat them well, and I've never really had a bad experience. I interviewed Lisa Marie Presley once, Elvis's daughter, and she was a little yes and no. That was kind of a difficult interview because you'd ask her a couple questions and she'd say yes, no, yes, no. So you get those kinds of interviews. But I've interviewed children on TV and radio too, and you kind of get the same answers out of kids. So but I've always had pretty good experiences. I'd say 9.9 out of 10 times the interviews have gone well.
I've definitely had a few interviews like that as well. I think when I had my hip hop station, I interviewed one of the members of Bone Thugs and Harmony, and it was literally like 2-word answers, and I'm like sitting there scratching my head mid-interview trying to scramble up some new questions because I asked 12 already, and it was only like 3 minutes in the interview, and I'm like, man, I should just give up.
Yeah, it makes it difficult for sure. So you've got to be creative sometimes. Sometimes it's I tell young interviewers, don't just ask them about the new album, the new song. Great, those are great sound bites that you can use, but ask them things about sports or your city you're living in, like, or what kind of foods they like, things that are kind of like outside the box that gets them thinking instead of answering the same questions over and over. And sometimes they appreciate that.
And also as well, one of your, well, just aside from radio for a few minutes, your
Yeah.
mentor and one of the individuals that helped you and gave you advice during your time you were working at Rogers TV is the late great CTV anchor Max Keeping. I was wondering if you
Yeah.
can actually just tell our listeners a bit more about that mentorship. And of course, how did yourself and Max first meet? Because he is such an amazing individual, man. Did so much for the community of Ottawa.
Well, it was 1995. He came to Vankleek Hill and he did a broadcast live on Main Street for then Newsline, which was what they called the CTV CJOH 6 o'clock news show. And I basically just said to him, like, I'm one day considering getting into broadcasting, and it's an honor to meet you. And I grew up watching him on TV, and he said, come up the next day and watch me do a show. And I got in the car the next day from Vankleek Hill with three of my friends, and there were three of us in total, and we sat and we watched him do a 6 o'clock show. And it was quite something because it was in the building that was right beside where Boom is now, and 106.9 The Bear when I was on that radio station. So we shared, the same parking lot and the same. That building's no longer there, but then I stayed in touch with him, asked him to come up and MC a variety show that we had at the high school when I was student council president, and we kept in touch. And throughout the years, he would help me be a better community-minded individual, better broadcaster. He'd open my eyes up to like different musicians, different concerts, different broadcasters in the city, and he was like that right up until his final days with me. So to the point that we named our child Maxwell after him. So Maxwell James after Max and my father James. So definitely a huge figure in my life.
He's one of those bigger than life figures as well. I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you really think about Max Keeping, he is Ottawa. I mean, if you think
yeah,
about CTV News, you don't think about like anybody else. You think about Max Keeping. That's just me, and I'm not even just saying this, man. Growing up in Brockville, I used to watch the Ottawa News all the time because, face it, Brockville doesn't have a TV station, and Kingston isn't that eventful. So I always tuned into Ottawa, and seeing Max Keeping on the news was he definitely had that presence for news broadcasting. Obviously, that's why he was there.
yeah. And I mean, he would go down to Brockville, he would go to Kingston, he would go to Cornwall, he would go to Vankleek Hill. Like, he would drop in all these cities and make sure people felt special, and he knew how to get eyes and ears on the product. But even more so, when he passed away, his memorial was at the Canadian Tire Center. And it wasn't just because he was on TV, it's because all the people that were in those seats were at one point in their lives, touched by his kindness. And, it's really something to aspire to when you go through life and you think about, how you can help people on a daily basis. So he used his platform for good. And that's what I've been trying to do for the past 27 years in radio and TV.
And speaking of helping people, you are also a highly dedicated to the Canadian Blood Service, where you have donated blood over 100 plus times. Honestly, I
Yeah.
last I seen was 109, but I'm sure it's been a heck of a lot more since then. So we're just going to say 100 plus. But what
Yeah.
inspired you to first actually start being a blood donor? And how does it feel knowing that you yourself have saved thousands upon thousands of lives?
Well, I'll be honest, it's 122 times. And the first time I gave was in high school. And the main reason a lot of people know my story is that when my mom was giving birth to my brother in the 1970s, she needed blood. And so the story goes that if the blood supply wasn't there, then I wouldn't be here because I came after my brother. I was born a couple years later. So, and then flash forward many years later, my dad needed blood when he was in the Heart Institute in 2019. So it's just, it's quite, to me, it's like a selfish act. And the reason why I say that is because it makes me feel good every time I do it. So I like to watch the numbers grow. I like to meet the people at the blood donor clinics. I like to, I feel great afterwards stealing some of the chips and bringing them home to my son and trying to inspire him for one day becoming a blood donor clinic. But it really, the whole process, like, as soon as you step in the front doors, with the questionnaires and the blood taking process, it's about 45 minutes. And I think if you're eligible, you should make a call. You should make an appointment because you'll feel great after knowing that you did so.
And also, you get free munchies as well. You get free chips.
That's
So
what I'm
45
saying.
minutes of your time,
Yeah.
you get free chips. I mean, it's a win-win. Save some
Yeah.
lives,
Oh,
get
yeah.
some chips. I like it.
Exactly. I'm down for sure.
And I'm pretty sure your son enjoys it as well. He's probably just like, Dad, go out there and get more blood. I want more chips.
Yeah, exactly. And he was there a couple times, and he saw the process, and I mentioned to him, obviously, like, maybe you'll give blood. And he's like, no way. But a couple times he said, maybe one day I will. So he's getting to the point where he understands the importance of it. And I know he's only 8, he's not allowed to. But hopefully, the memories of him seeing me give, or the pictures that we take, or one day he will do the same.
And also, as well, another great thing you're a part of is Yuck Yucks Comedy Club over there on Richmond Road, right here in the west end of Ottawa. I was wondering, can you tell us a bit more about, your time at Yuck Yucks and how that opportunity came to be for you? Because you do a lot of great stuff in the comedy scene as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there for about 10 years. I've known Howard Wagman, the owner of Yuck Yucks Ottawa, for maybe 20 years. He's had that establishment for 41 years, and he's been responsible for some huge names throughout the years. He helped Norm Macdonald get his start, and Tom Green, and just all these names, right? So about 10 years back, Howard and an amazing comedian manager at the club named Chris Boris thought that it was a good idea to bring me on, because they knew of my community background. And we create nights for charities and organizations, and we help them raise money, and we give great people nights out. And so they call me the community events coordinator there, and I love being a part of the scene. And this past summer, I got to host a few times. I had a little more time in my hands, so I got up there on the stage and got creative, and it's been a blast. And yeah, we've been at the new location for 3 years now, and it's thriving. And supporting local, supporting the arts. It's just an incredible place to escape for a few hours.
And also, as well, I know we mentioned it. I don't mean to bring it up, but as you and I both know, unfortunately, Boom 99.7 is there, but kind of empty right now. And I'm sure all of your fans are wondering, what is next on the horizon for Dylan Black? Like, do you still want to be on the radio? And if so, what station would you actually like to be on if you actually had that choice?
To me, the station doesn't matter per se as much as contributing. I'd love to contribute to a product. I love the whole entertainment portion, of course, of being on the radio, and I was helping in the music department and the community aspect, and all of that, right, is beautiful. So I'd like to be back on the radio one day, possibly back on television again, but 27 years was a good run. And I think at this point, yeah, that's all wonderful, but I just, I want happiness. I want time with my son. I want a beautiful balance of all these things. But I'd love to be a part of a station that can just let me do my thing, and help where I can in the community, and just be proud to fly their flag, right? And I'm hoping that'll happen again one day soon.
And I'm not sure if you're actually allowed to talk about this, but has anybody actually came to you with offers since, the departure from Boom 99.7? Has anyone kind of reached out and was like, hey, like, we want to hire you. We want to get you on our station. Like, has anyone actually done that?
So there's been some small conversations here and there, and I haven't really focused on it, if I'm being honest. Right now I'm just taking a little time to just take a little bit of a break, and like I mentioned, spend time with my son, and do some other things outside of the box in the community. So yeah, it is a difficult thing to speak about, of course, but
we'll just say stations reached out. We'll just make it plural. We'll say stations reached out.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of good people, not a lot of people, but I've spoken to some good people, and you just never know, like, what the future holds. So I'm hoping, obviously, to reappear on a radio station, but you just never know the way the world goes. Who knows? Well,
hopefully, if you do get back on the air, Dylan, we have you back on the afternoon drive, because I think I can speak for all of Ottawa. The afternoon drive is lonely. I mean, get in the car at 4 o'clock or anything at 4 o'clock. You turn on the radio, it's just pure music, and you're like, no, it just doesn't feel the same.
Well, I mean, it was my dream job. So I always say this. I spent 13 years with Boom and the Bear that back in those days too. And if somebody would have told me, we'll give you 13 years and you'll eventually be afternoon drive and you'll help out in the music department, but one day it will end. And if I would have been given that offer 13 years ago, I would have said, okay, thank you very much. I'll take it. There's no doubt about it. So it just happened to have ended. It was, things happen in this business and I wasn't the only one affected. So I'm very grateful, and afternoons is super fun. But the day I was let go was the first day I got to see my son get off the bus from school. So, radio, as you know, can take, can give and can take. So the hours can be all over the place sometimes, and you put in extra hours because you love the medium and you're just, committed to it. But yeah, afternoons is pretty fun, no doubt about it.
I remember we actually sat down and had that talk when you actually really told me, like, is this what you want to do for sure? Because how radio is, or as you said, it takes away a lot of your life, but I love it, man. I feel like if you genuinely love radio, once you get a taste of it, you can't stop, man. It's highly addictive.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, it was nice to get the break. Obviously it was a shock when it happened, but it was like, you breathe a little bit and you get a break. And the summer was fantastic with weather, but I am missing it. And I'm missing that creative outlet and just being myself. And, I love the building because they let me be as silly as I wanted to and as loud as I wanted to and just be myself at all times. And that was wonderful. And I'm hoping to find that again. So radio allows you to be more creative than the average job. There's no doubt about that.
And also December 6th, this Christmas season, I know we touched base on it at the very beginning of the broadcast, but you will be an ambassador for the Santa Shuffle at the Salvation Army. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about the Santa Shuffle. And of course, how can listeners within the Ottawa area get a little bit more involved with this great movement?
So I think this is going to be the 35th year that they've done it across Canada. And it assists, the Salvation Army, the Bethany Hope Center to be more precise, and they help out young adult families who are struggling. And it's basically a 5K, 1K fun run, walk. You just have a good time down at TD Place or Lansdowne. SantaShuffle.ca. Soon you're going to see me pumping out a whole bunch of videos with me and Santa hats and all that kind of stuff, because yes, we're trying to get people geared up for it, but then there's also the people who are like, do not talk about Christmas yet, it's September. So that can always be a bit of a challenge, but it'll be here before you know it. And they ask me every year to be, they call me Ambassador Elf. And I'm super proud to have that title. And it's always a big event. They raise a lot of money, and even more importantly, it's a ton of fun for families.
And maybe you never know, Dylan Black might turn into Santa Claus this year and be jolly old Saint Nick for a bit.
Well, I'm trying to. One of the things I've been doing with my time off is making sure I don't turn into Santa Claus. So I run every day. That's part of my.
Well, I got to say, you're looking good, Dylan. I got to say, you're doing a reverse Tim Allen. I'm pretty sure from the Santa Claus, when he tried to run, he would get bigger. So, I mean, at least, it's going the opposite way.
Thank you. Trying. I'm working on it.
And one of the last questions I do have for you tonight there, Dylan, is we got a lot of radio broadcasters. And as we already know, the radio broadcasting program at Algonquin is closing. I myself am going to be one of the very last CKDJ on-air announcers at the college. But anyone that is watching, whether they're watching from Durham or anywhere around Canada, what is some great advice you can actually give some inspiring radio broadcasters that are trying to make it in the business in 2025?
Yeah, gosh, it is difficult because, as I mentioned, I mean, there aren't many street team positions anymore. There aren't overnight positions. There really aren't weekend positions. Midday positions have even disappeared. So how do you get into the business? I mean, networking, I think, is extremely important. Learning from those who are on the radio is important. That's one of my, I believe, my keys to success is I'd listen to radio stations in Ottawa and Montreal, and I'd be like, well, if they can sound like that, if they sound like that and I sound like that, maybe I can get on the radio. So you learn, you're constantly listening, you're constantly even being out of the business right now, I'll sit here and I'll practice. I'll see infomercials and I'll that number again is 1-888-496. Like I'll practice, right? Like practice. And but it's definitely a challenge with all these courses disappearing. Podcasts are keep your skills up. What you're doing right here keeps your skills up. But I hate to say it again, but networking, getting out there and meeting people, and just getting your foot in the door as much as possible. It's a difficult industry, but there's also more radio stations than ever. So there are positions. It's just you have to sometimes work hard to get into those positions. That's all.
And I will admit, what I'd actually just looking at I looked at my student debt. I logged into my national student loan, and I'll say this live. I'm right now. I'm currently $30,000 in student debt, not including the last term that's coming in January. And I will admit, it makes me a little nervous to have that. But I kind of say to myself, even if I don't find anything when I get out of college, at least I had that experience. I got to at least be a part of a movement that unfortunately is going to be no longer. So that experience alone is worth $30,000. I mean, I say that now, but then when I'm 47 years old and I'm still paying off my student debt, maybe I won't think so as much.
Well, I mean, you do only have one life, right? And of course you've got to protect yourself and be smart with your money. And I get all that stuff too, but it's like, if you love something, you got to go for it, or you don't want to live with regrets, right? And I see what you're doing, and you're putting yourself out there, and you're working hard, and even though you're seeing things kind of get more and more difficult with the business, you just have to go for it, and hopefully, like I said, I have this 27-year career that nobody will ever take away from me, right? No matter what, and I'm super proud I had it. And hopefully I can continue to build on it, but just keep doing what you're doing. And if you love it, that's number one, because you don't want to spend your life unhappy, right? So.
And Dylan, before we actually part ways tonight, how does Ottawa and the rest of the individuals watching all over the world that come across this interview, whether they're listening live right now or checking this out on YouTube in months to come, how can they follow Ottawa's finest, the legend himself, Dylan Black?
I mean, I'm all over social media to a fault sometimes, right? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called now. And my handle is pretty simple. It's Dylan Black Radio. And I'm very accessible. If anyone wants to drop me a line, say hi. I'd be happy to hook you up with a night at Yuck Yucks as well, just for saying hi. That's part of my role there, is to make people smile. And I love to communicate. That's one of the things that I do best, I believe. It's one of my skills. And would be happy to say hi to anybody who wants to say hi to me.
And Dylan, I know I said this to you every single time we talk, man, but I just got to say this again. And I got to say, it's not going to be the last time either, but just kind of like how Max Keeping did with you, you're doing the same thing with me. You're mentoring me, and you really took me under your wing. And honestly, I will admit, sometimes I think I'm not truly worthy of it, because I look at your career and what you've done, and it's absolutely extraordinary what you did just for Ottawa radio, not including the other stations that you were a part of as well. But sincerely, thank you so much for all the help you've showed me. You took the time to listen to my demos. You took the time to actually bring me into the studio and chat and give me your time of your days. So, Dylan, thank you so much for the mentorship, man. I really appreciate every single piece of advice you gave me and everything, dude. I mean, you really helped elevate my career much more than you actually think you have so far. So thank you so much.
Well, that's a very kind thing to do. But, in the words of the great Max Keeping, whenever I said somebody was lucky or somebody was whatever, he would say, no, if that's what you meant to do, it's not luck, it's skill. And you have a lot of skill, and just the fact that we're talking here tonight, I don't see, respectfully to your other students, the other students in your program, they're not asking me to be on the show. You have, and you take the initiative, right? And I've seen that in you for a number of years now, and I wish you good things. DJ Immortal at 99.9 Punk World Radio.
I will say that I've done thousands of interviews and I've never been choked up before. So you, Dylan, are the first person to make that happen. But no, dude, again, thank you so much. It means a lot coming from you. And I will tell you one thing, to make you proud, when I get out of college, I'm getting a job. Even if it's at like a news talk radio, you will hear me on the air in Ottawa.
That's awesome. Perhaps you might want to get me one too. So we'll see.
Hey, you know what? I'm pretty sure if they give me a job before you, I'll be like, what are you guys doing?
You never know, right? Keep up the good
Well,
work.
I will say, if we're competing for a job and they give it to me, I'm going to be like, really? I'm like, did you get enough sleep? You need to give it to him.
You never know. In this business, you never know. So good things to come, I promise.
But I got to say, Dylan, again, thank you so much for everything, man. Thank you so much for your time tonight as well.
Thank
and
you.
I'm pretty sure we
you.
definitely shall talk again here soon, man. But for now, have yourself a phenomenal night, man.
Anytime. You too. Take care. Bye.